Hello, and welcome to another Sports Next Door podcast. My name is Owen. Today is Monday, March 22nd, and I am joined, as I always am, by my neighbor Max. Max, the champion has fallen this weekend. Heretics losing to Ascend in the Valorant European Masters Finals over the weekend.
Well, that sounds tragic. I'm devastated.
I just got to bring it up because I really didn't know what was going on, but it was on TVs as much as March Madness was this weekend because of my housemate having a large interest in the gaming world. And so a lot of Valorant and a lot of March Madness consumed this weekend, and we'll probably get there in a bit. But what's going on with you, buddy?
Well, I had a pretty sun-kissed weekend. I'm not sure it's showing on the camera, but I thought with a UV of 1, I was safe to just kind of enjoy the first few nice warm rays of the season and safe maybe, but my Anglo-Saxon skin, I guess, pretty easily swayed to another shade of pink. How about you?
I've been pretty busy this weekend, so the only time I was out in the sun was kind of before the hours of 11 a.m. and after the hours of 4 p.m. So sun's
Safe.
not really a factor at that point, and was able to enjoy a bit of the warmth, but not as much as I would have liked to.
I hope you have a working water heater by now.
Yes, of course. We had a guy come all the way from Scarborough to come fix it. I know the grind is real. And then our landlord, he's been great to us this year, sent us some money to buy some pizza, so ended up being a good story in the end.
Nice.
Yeah.
What did you watch with that pizza?
We watched Snyder Cut.
How was
it? Yeah, because we had to break it up into 2 nights because 4 hours is a long sitting for a movie. I don't care what movie it is. It's just tough to get all the people to sit down for that long.
Yeah.
And I thought they did a great job of it just simply because there was more information. The initial Justice League movie, you could not follow. There was no storyline. There was no character development. There's just a lot of action scenes put together with like very minimal character conversation scenes to kind of push it along. But in this one, because he has just such a gargantuan amount of time, he gives you a fuller building of the background for Cyborg, for the Flash. They have like different intro scenes, just builds it up better. There's more conversation about, I don't want to spoil too much of it. I'm sure most people, if they're hearing it, have already watched it by now, but like bringing Superman back to life. There was more build up to that. You actually understand the villain now. Like Darkseid was not in the other movie, and he's the actual villain. Like
I
the
heard
person
it was
there.
so like I didn't see the first one, but I heard it was so generic. It was just like beyond memeing. Bad guy get crystal and build army, save world.
Yeah, it felt a little bit Avenger-y where it's like Steppenwolf is your Thanos trying to collect the Infinity Stones. But in this case, he would actually be more comparable to like a Loki, where the big bad villain sends his like third subordinate to go grab one of the things for him. Only it was, he kind of stumbled upon Earth as opposed to choosing it to go find it. So in the other one, Steppenwolf is like the main villain who they have to fight. But in this movie, they actually show the real like villain at the top of the food chain, Darkseid. And so that was developed a lot better. It made it so much easier to understand when you actually had the full picture. It's just 4 hours is a lot. So you understand why movies cut so much of the content that they have. And I guess it's why it's even more impressive that you're able to get very high quality films with all that extra cutting and stitching together that they have to do.
I'm sure especially for an ensemble type movie, the difficulties stack up a little higher too.
Yeah, it's partially like Marvel had individual movies for all of their characters to build all of them up so that when they get to those like Avengers movies, they can just have the action without having to build up the characters as much. But Justice League was trying to simultaneously build new characters in because they hadn't had their own movies. Just Wonder Woman and Aquaman, really. Like even Batman didn't really have. I guess Batman versus Superman, but yeah. And so you're adding these new characters without even developing them, and so that's why that other movie kind of flopped. And this one was a lot better in that regard. And we got a new look at the Joker, Jared Leto's Joker.
I heard someone else is going to play that next, or was it still Jared Leto just with a different look?
Just a different look.
Gotcha.
Kind of like a dystopian future where him and Batman are teamed up. So that scene was interesting. I don't know if we'll actually get those movies just because I don't know what the plans are for them to ever launch. They might have to, I don't know. It might just be a different director. So really unknown what is going to come from the DC universe, whereas we have our Marvel universe pretty set. Falcon Winter Soldier first episode came out on Friday. Really enjoyed that. Yeah, it's a good time to be a superhero fan. Lots of content coming out.
Nice. Not a bad time to be a basketball fan either, eh?
No, sir. And that is a great transition because I'm just about to talk about March Madness. We'll follow that out with some NBA, some Combat Corner, some hockey talk, and then a little bit of football and tennis notes at the end. But I'm ready to jump right into our March Madness weekend. And I mentioned that a champion had fallen, and I was trying to do a little setup, but the previous champions 2 years ago in 2019 was University of Virginia, who fall to Ohio, not Ohio State, to Ohio in a pretty big upset there. I think it was a 13 beating a 4 seed. And yeah, you could see videos of the city of Athens, Ohio, people swarming the streets. It's another super spreader event, but they're happy when you get a big upset like that. And upsets were the theme of the weekend. Lots of sub 13 seeds winning. I think we had 4 total. And I think where I got to go with the main story of the weekend, it's got to be the 15th seeded Cinderella story, Oral Roberts, who take out number 2 Ohio State and then follow that by taking out number 7 Florida in back-to-back games. They are the second ever 15 seed to make it to the Sweet 16. And they've done it just like, I don't know, they just shocked everyone, and they've been playing really well. And really interesting moment in the Florida game yesterday where they decide with about 3 minutes left to intentionally foul. It was a very hack-a-shack moment where they intentionally fouled the worst free throw shooter on Florida. And in college basketball, until you reach the bonus, free throws are 1-on-1. So he
Double
misses
bonus.
the first. Yeah. Or yeah, sorry. He misses the first one, which means no more free throws. And so they instantly get the possession with no points scored for their team. And they come down and they take the lead. And then immediately Florida checks that guy out of the game. But it seemed like a pretty pivotal moment, and they were able to hold on for the win. Really impressed with Oral Roberts this weekend. Shout out to them because that's a fun story to continue to follow. They're matching up against Arkansas in their Sweet 16 matchup.
I love that move. That's hilarious.
Yeah. All right. We got number 12, Oregon State, going on a little run now to the Sweet 16. They take out the Tennessee Volunteers in the first round, and then just last night late beating Cade Cunningham and the Oklahoma State Cowboys in that second round matchup. So we're losing our chance to watch any more of the possible first overall pick. He didn't have that great of a performance in either of the games, struggled a bit offensively. Of course, he does a lot of other things really well, and is also playing on a team where he has to do a lot of the heavy lifting. The March Madness tournament is never really that influential on the draft for those like top guys because they've just already proven themselves. Some teams love to see how they'll perform on the biggest stage, which would make sense because you want to see that clutch factor, but sometimes just things are out of your control as one player on a court. And then I guess the other thing I would say is he's already established himself greatly, and the only thing that could happen is an injury, or I guess what we saw here where he had some poor play and that might diminish him, but I still think he's going to go number 1 overall. The big thing for March Madness is it helps those later round draft guys like a Dante DiVincenzo and now this Buddy Boeheim kid out of Syracuse who's been an absolute flamethrower. It's guys like that, those like late picks who, if they have a great performance in March Madness, will be able to raise their draft stock because people are constantly looking for the kind of those role players who can make a big shot. And that's what these guys are looking like. Yeah, so shout out to Oregon State. Talked too much about Cade Cunningham there, but they are through to the Sweet 16. So congrats to them. We've got Christian Albion beating Texas in their first round matchup. Another huge upset. Loyola Chicago through to the Sweet 16. They have more wins in the last couple March Madnesses than a bunch of like the big blue bloods who usually dominate the tournament. Shout out to Cameron Krutwig. I don't know if you see these memes, Max, but this kid is an absolute unit. He is kind of he reminds me a little bit of Nikola Jokic in his body shape and how he moves, but he just dominated against Illinois. So there goes my bracket. I mean, if my bracket got busted in the very first game when Florida beat Virginia Tech, so tough look. But I had Illinois winning the tournament, and they get beat out by Loyola Chicago on the back of Cameron Krutwig just operating like Nikola Jokic. He was just bullying guys, and very late play, he's like this kind of chunky white dude with facial hair, and he gets a steal that deflects off of the Illinois guard out of bounds, and he's swinging his hands around, fired up. He's growing into a huge meme, and I hope they can continue to go, because you've also got Sister Jean, who was the big story back when Loyola Chicago was I think a lower seed, and they made it to the Final Four. So she's been praying for them to get victories, and I don't know if that's the most Christian thing, but we'll continue to follow their success as they keep chugging along in the tournament. And then we've got Syracuse, an 11 seed, beating West Virginia. And this is where I come back to Buddy Boeheim. The kid is an absolute flamethrower. He's been shooting 55% over the last 2 weeks from three, which is unheard of in college basketball because the three-point shooting is usually not as good as NBA three-point shooters. And Buddy Boeheim is, I don't know, he's just lighting the world on fire and been really fun to watch. We've got games, I believe, starting at 9:00. So they will kick off while we are doing the podcast. Probably won't get any live commentary for those ones like we did for the Leafs game. But yeah, it's been a really, really fun tournament so far with the upsets. Anything is possible, especially in a pandemic year. So I guess that is the other story. VCU getting knocked out. They don't even play their first round game against Oregon due to positive tests. So Oregon has yet to play, but they will play, I think, USC coming up this morning. So should be good. And that kind of transitions me into the next thing I wanted to talk about the tournament, which was which one of these prospects in the tournament are we going to be looking for coming towards the NBA draft? And with Cade Cunningham being out, the next guy on that list that you want to be watching, tune in this morning to see, is Evan Mobley out of USC. He was utterly dominant against Drake in their first round matchup, and he's going to have to be a big part of what they do if they want to move deep into this tournament. But he's a versatile, like two-way big. He blocks, he protects the rim really well, and he finishes lobs. He can operate out of the post. He can shoot the three, at least the college three ball. Really, really like great talent all over the place. And if he looks like an even more polished version of James Wiseman. And so if you're NBA scouts, you've got to be salivating, because in the NBA, it feels like it's very guard driven, but those teams with the like elite two-way bigs, like an Anthony Davis, I guess you would call Kevin Durant, maybe because he's 7 feet tall, right? Guys like that, like a Giannis, those kind of hybrid bigs who can score and protect. Evan Mobley, I don't know if he'll ever be as quick and dribble heavy as Giannis and a Kevin Durant, but he definitely has the tools to be almost like an Anthony Davis, where he can protect the paint for you, but also light it up on the offensive end. Obviously, that's a really high ceiling to project, but that is what scouts see when they look at what a guy like this what his ceiling looks like. And I wouldn't say he'll be Anthony Davis, but that is just a good comparison when you're thinking the absolute highest end of what he could be. And so definitely tune in to watch Evan Mobley if you haven't yet. We've also got Jalen Suggs, who is going to be a top 5 pick out of Gonzaga. He leads that Bulldog team in terms of running their offense, and he's just super solid. He was a top tier quarterback prospect coming out of high school, and so he's got a boatload of athleticism. He attacks the rim. He's a great playmaker. Definitely is kind of one of those guys. Feels like a Tyrese Halliburton in the fact that he is NBA ready right now, but I don't know if he'll ever be that top tier talent. So it's looking for those teams who are looking to compete right now, who feel like their roster is ahead of where everyone else thinks it is, and is looking for like an NBA ready guard to just plug and play. He's a great fit. And I don't know, you could think Minnesota is kind of thinking that way, where they have Karl-Anthony Towns and Edwards is taking a step forward, and they've got a couple of other pieces, and they feel like they're further along in their timeline than they actually are. Then this would be a great guy to plug in with that team, because he is ready to step on a court and produce, whereas some of these other guys might take longer to develop, but might have a higher end potential. A lot of guys have already been dropped out of the tournament. We've got Corey Kispert from Gonzaga, who looks to be kind of a dual threat guard, so can operate as point, but also can play off ball as a shooting guard. You've got Franz Wagner from Michigan, who is a two-way guard. He can shoot it well, and obviously because of his European background, he's got a flair and can make great passes out of that guard position. You've got Moses Moody, a wing out of Arkansas. Feels similar to like an Isaac Okoro type of player, or Patrick Williams, where they're like big bodied, they can defend. It'll just be what they can bring on the offensive side of the ball. And so a 3-and-D, maybe a little bit more type player who's really, really solid. Another guy who I'm really intrigued by is Scotty Barnes out of Florida State. He has been kind of almost like a triple-double machine for this team throughout the season. Has put up some like really weird stat lines with like 11 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, and 5 blocks or something like that. He's all over the place. He's super athletic, but he can pass the ball around well. Sometimes they'll run him at kind of the 4 in their offense, but he'll have the point guard duties. Just a really interesting body type. He's 6'9", 225. So great like body shape, body type, and the fact that he gives you a lot of those like hustle stats and does the right things on offense means that he can fit into a lot of team systems as a guy who just keeps the ball moving, but can provide you that like rebounding. So it'll be interesting to see where he would fit in on a team in terms of positioning, if he's going to be more of a wing or if they'd put him at the guard position. Some of the comps I have here, like a Draymond Green, Pascal Siakam type, which pretty good ceiling for someone who you could get in the early teens in the draft. And then that is kind of it for guys who are still left in the tournament. Obviously, there are others who have already seen play, a lot of guards from Tennessee, Illinois, and then you've got, of course, Cade Cunningham at the top, who just got eliminated last night, but definitely keep those guys in mind. Primarily Mobley and Barnes are the two that I would, and I guess Jalen Suggs too, are kind of the 3 that I would really highlight as people to watch moving forward in the tournament, especially Suggs, because he'll go deep. I think he'll go deeper than those other 2. But yeah, really, really fun tournament so far, and we're going to continue to follow it as March Madness it keeps on giving. There's going to be games all the time, and we're starting in about 5 minutes here. It's 8:55 a.m. Eastern time, so we're going to have games going very shortly. But yeah, enjoy it. Pick yourself up. It was a long weekend if you were watching a ton of March Madness. A lot of games throughout the weekend. And no breaks. You just got to get right back up and stick your butt on the couch and watch more March Madness today, or at least have it in your pop-up window at work. So that means we can move on to the NBA. And I want to preface this segment by saying I will be no longer talking about the Raptors until they A, make a trade for a productive center, or B, the trade deadline passes, whichever of those come first. Yeah, there will be no comments at this time about the Toronto Raptors. I'm going to take a self-help break from Raptors discussion and move on to some unfortunate news in the NBA. We have essentially, with Embiid already down, we kind of have our front runner for the MVP and our front runner for the Rookie of the Year both going down with injuries this weekend. LeBron James with a high ankle sprain, or syndesmosis sprain, as we like to say in the kin community. Might break that down in a second. And Lamelo Ball going down with a fractured wrist and is believed will be missing the rest of the season. That's really tough for Charlotte because they are in the thick of a playoff race right now. And he has been really, really special for them. I think he's 7th on the team in fourth quarter minutes. So not super key to their success down the stretch, but definitely a guy who puts up a lot of stats for them and is a great part of their culture. We wonder if he might be back in time for the playoffs if Charlotte ends up capturing one of those spots. But for now, end of the regular season, it looks like Ball will not be back until then. And that's a really tough pill to swallow because he's probably played enough games this season to have the Rookie of the Year locked up, but we'll have to see what Tyrese Halliburton does down the stretch. He kind of feels like the only guy left who can catch him at this point. And so if Halliburton has a really solid, like no injury, really solid rest of the season, then he'll probably end up stealing that from Lamelo, who was pretty much a lock until this injury this weekend. So really, really terrible news. I feel bad, especially for SportsCenter, because I don't know what they're going to post on Instagram now with both of these guys going down. That was a joke being tossed around this weekend. But the LeBron injury, really, really rare freak. Guy falls on his foot, and most ankles, obviously, if you're listening on the podcast, you can't see this, but I like to use my hand as a proxy for what a foot would look like. And most ankles turn outwardly, so an inversion fracture. But LeBron, when the guy fell on his ankle from the outside, actually turned inward as an eversion sprain. And so what that can do is when your foot is locked on the floor and it's not pointed, it's locked and it goes like that, then it is actually like really susceptible to fractures up in your leg bones. So your tibia and your fibula. The x-rays came back negative, which is a huge sigh of relief for Lakers fans, because that would have knocked him out for 3-4 months. But right now with the syndesmosis sprain, which kind of travels up your leg, there's kind of a membrane that attaches the two bones in your leg together. So that's also going to be a little bit torn, and the ligaments on the inside of his foot will be torn. It'll be probably about 6 to 8 weeks you're looking at as his return timeline. I don't know if they'll be more cautious and maybe extend that a little bit longer, but they didn't give a timeline in their press release, but I'm giving you it here now as a kinesiology student. So if you want to come for your injury news, just talk to me. It looks to be about 6 to 8 weeks for LeBron. And I believe last we heard Anthony Davis, March 1st said he'd be about a month. So probably a little bit less than 2 weeks left until AD's back. And the Lakers are going to have to tread water until then. They lost big last night to the Suns. When you're missing the two guys that make your team hum, it's going to feel a lot like 2019 Lakers before Anthony Davis arrived and when LeBron went down and all those young kids were getting their butts kicked every night. Luckily, the Lakers have a pretty solid buffer over kind of that play-in seating. They can fall down as much as they like. They're probably not going to fall all the way to 7. So in that regard, I guess you can have a sigh of relief as Lakers fans, but you just really want these guys to get healthy and get recovered. And this time off, they can get their cardio back up. They can work a little bit on their strength. They can actually come back even stronger and ready to go with this rest, because LeBron's really been worked into the ground this season. So this is an opportunity for him to catch his breath, and you'd hope they come back stronger and ready to just run in the playoffs.
Yeah, I guess 6 to 8 weeks will still be in time for playoffs, eh?
Yeah, it should be.
So as long as they can hang in there, not too much panic in Los Angeles yet.
Yeah, just making sure you don't want the team to fall down the standings, because this team, even with Anthony Davis back, LeBron really runs that team with the playmaking. So Anthony Davis can provide you some of the numbers, but without one of those like playmaking guards, like they're really going to need Schroeder to step up. They're really going to need Caruso to give them a little bit more. You might see them looking for a buyout guy, playmaking guard of some kind to pick up just while LeBron is gone. That was a role that Rondo fit really well last year when LeBron wasn't on the court. He could at least move the ball around and find Anthony Davis in his spots. So this will be really important for the Lakers going forward. Is even when Anthony Davis comes back, this team isn't as successful unless LeBron is on the court. So really finding out ways to just scrape wins up and maintain their spot in the standings so they don't fall down too much will be really important for them. And just sucks to see kind of two top talents get hurt. That is what it boils down to.
Yeah, the MVP and Rookie of the Year trophies turning into a reward for longevity.
Yeah, and there's the old saying, availability is the best ability. Um, so you can't discount. I think Jokic has got to be your number one front runner now that the other top two guys are out with injuries.
And
Not
if
to
the
say that he,
Sixers and Lakers slide in this
yep,
time, that's kind of deserved, eh?
yep, and not to say that he wasn't like right there with them before, because he has been like his numbers are, we've never seen anything like this before. But it also opens the door for Giannis, who people have been trying to find ways to not give him, but he has been just as productive as his previous two MVP seasons. He actually has better numbers than LeBron with better defensive stats. Um, he is another low-key guy that just won't get it because people don't want to give away 3 MVPs, but he probably is right in that mix. And then James Harden. The longer Kevin Durant has been out, the more Harden has succeeded with Brooklyn and is starting to claw his way into that conversation as well. And then you've obviously got like Luka and Dame who are hovering, but it feels like it's Jokic's now. He is in control of that. And depending on how quickly Embiid comes back, if they're going to be cautious with Embiid, so if he's sitting out longer, then this is Jokic's trophy now to win. And it makes me it's kind of bummed. I think Jokic was my MVP kind of underdog pick 2 summers ago, so it would have been last season. And I guess I was just one season too early on that feeling, because I love Jokic and the way he's been playing. It's been brilliant to watch.
Yeah, you love having these different unique guys in the league that all show you something different, and Jokic, it doesn't get much more unique than him.
Yeah, but they did lose to the Pelicans yesterday. Zion and Jackson Hayes, just two gross posters in that game. Zion curling to his left, and he just jumped from probably a foot inside the free throw line and just levitated and got fouled 3 different times, but no call, and just dunked over all of them. And then Jackson Hayes had this and one poster that was just nasty. Short roll, pocket bounce pass, caught it and went straight up and just dunked all over. I forget who it was. I think it was Paul Millsap, but yeah, nice dunks there. And the Pelicans giving the Nuggets a loss, but Jokic always going to put up numbers in every single game and really consistent, is the MVP frontrunner as of right now. We move to Brooklyn, where Blake Griffin makes his debut as a Brooklyn Net. 2 points, 2 rebounds, 1 block, and the block he got on like his very first possession on Bradley Beal. He didn't do too much in the game, but his one basket that he scored was a dunk, which people had been getting all over him. They were saying he was a grounded player, or the memes where he was just saving himself in Detroit because he didn't want to play there anymore, so he wasn't going to dunk. He hadn't dunked in, I think it was like 400 days or something, because the pandemic obviously shuts down the season, and he hadn't dunked yet this season. Obviously known for being a high flyer, has really been grounded by a lot of injuries, but he got back up there, pump faked, drove into the lane, nice 2-handed flush. And the internet was going crazy over that one because it's been a while since we've seen Blake take off, and hopefully he can provide some of that for Brooklyn. Again, not a lot showed up on the stat sheet, and I don't know if he'll ever be the player that he was, but he's still a smart guy, and he'll figure out a way to integrate into this offense. And now Brooklyn just has more looks with Claxton, with DeAndre Jordan, with Bruce Brown. They can just throw out a number of those guys at that fourth or fifth position on the court with those big three. So yeah, shout out to Blake Griffin. Way to get up, buddy.
Grounded spirit, not a grounded body.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll see. But he can still throw it down, which is important. Okay. That wraps up our basketball talk for this one. And we'll take a quick break and come back for some Combat Corner. And we are back for a Combat Corner and a wrap up of UFC Vegas 22 over the weekend. Max, what you got for me, buddy?
Yeah, I've got a couple of takeaways from the night. Overall, it was a pretty fun one. I mean, when there's knockouts, I'm just leaving out by guys who already have UFC wins against guys who have UFC wins. You know, I know I had enough to take away from the night. So I wanted to start with this interesting parallel in two of the fights. I guess Ty Tuivasa and Montel Jackson looking like the exact same person, minus the 120-pound difference between the two men. Both guys, hot prospects, signed to the UFC. The order of their losses have come in slightly different places, but both have lost to those real legit top 15ers in their division, but looked phenomenal and sensational against pretty much everyone else. And both were matched up tonight against guys who had never fought in the UFC before. I know Tuivasa's matchup came on like 4 days notice when his opponent had to pull out. I'm not sure how quickly Montel Jackson's opponent was signed, but both knocked their opponent out with a counter right hand against some sloppy offense, or knocked their opponent down, which was the beginning of the end, and they then each just chased a finish pretty effortlessly and cleanly. So it was just a nice reminder. I mean, there's levels to this game, and Tuivasa and Jackson are both far from shot prospects, and there's still a lot of upside and room for them to develop and grow. I think maybe the holes in Tuivasa's game a bit more apparent, and I mean, we didn't really get to see too much. We've seen a nice leg kick in his last two fights, this recent one included. And whereas Montel Jackson, his losses to Ricky Simone and Brett Johns, it's the hole in his game is clearly grappling, so we don't get to learn too much about it. But just nice to be reminded there's levels to this game. That UFC experience is really valuable, and don't charge in against opponents with powerful hands and throw sloppy shots. I think it was a knee from Strader exiting the clinch that got him caught, and just like a sloppy heavyweight bomb attempt from Tuivasa's opponent. Then the one KO I have to talk about just for sensational value. This one, I don't know, it should have been on Sports Center. I don't know if you heard about, but Leonard Dos Santos, a guy I was talking about a couple of weeks ago, I think wrongly, I attributed a knockout to him he didn't have, but that's just because he's had so many knockouts over such a span of time in the UFC and managed to stay competitive and dangerous at 41 years old, with this really interesting development as a jiu-jitsu guy who came into the UFC and just put together some fantastic striking. And it was a really interesting matchup because his opponent was a guy on like a 5-0 featherweight streak who had moved up to lightweight. And for most of the fight, that's what it looked like, a featherweight against a lightweight. Dawson just couldn't get Dos Santos down. The grappling defense held strong for him, and the size and frame advantage certainly helped. But you've got to give credit to Dawson. He stayed very committed and persistent, even in the first two rounds when he wasn't getting it. He did enough to win some judges' scorecards early in those first two rounds, then got the takedown in the third round, which was a really nice cornerstone moment. Just, you don't you normally in MMA, if the takedowns aren't flowing early, then it just says there's levels to the grappling defense versus grappling offense, and it's not going to happen. But this time, Dawson gets the takedown in the third round, kept switching it up. It was kind of like a body lock slam, I think, that got it for him. Not a lot happens in the guard, which is often the case against like a black belt. You've just got to stay safe and watch for submissions. But I think Dos Santos thought the fight was over, was just doing kind of some lazy leg lock attempts for defense, and Dawson like just leans up, frames high, and starts like throwing whatever he can, generating as much leverage as he can with those loopy hammer fists. Lands a couple looking like nothing, and then one just finds the mark right on the chin, and suddenly Dos Santos is out with 2 seconds left in the fight. That was for sure the kind of wow moment of the night. I thought Dos Santos was winning the first 2 rounds, so that made it even more important to get that last second finish, which I guess he would have won the fight anyway, it seems like. But just one of those crazy sporting moments we got to watch, and fantastic like grit and diligence to stay in the fight and keep fighting till the bell goes by Grant Dawson. So he's got some time now to size up as a lightweight, hopefully go to the drawing board and see what worked, what didn't work for him in this fight, how he feels about staying in the division. But he keeps the 0 in the UFC for now. And at 41, I do some with a loss now on his record. The mysticness probably gone from Dos Santos. I don't know if we'll see him in there again, who we'll see him against. Maybe he gets a retirement fight in there because he looked good, just not quite as dangerous on the feet. Then the next fight I want to talk about almost felt like a throwback to UFC 1 in Conejo versus Baez, the women's strawweight, I believe. It might have been flyweight. Either way, you very rarely see like one thing just work over and over and over again and the opponent have no answer for it. You normally see there's like some switching up, or they're like, if it's a strike that keeps working, they'd like fake the strike and land something else and then go back to it. But the Conejo with the head and arm throw, which has often been really effective in women's MMA, you just see so many sequences where they get that head and arm throw and then end up in a armbar attempt position more often than not. Conejo not going for the armbar, just staying in that kind of side control-esque position with her like hands wrapped around the head and just like a crazy squeeze, because Baez just couldn't get out of it for like a solid 10 minutes of the fight. But Conejo just went to it again and again. She did enough in the first 2 rounds to like run up the scorecards, and then almost used it defensively in the third round when Baez was getting desperate. Like, oh, you're going to get close to me in the clinch. You know what's coming, but you cannot stop it. It's a really risky throw because when you go for it, your opponent has a chance to scramble before you get top dominant control and either take the back or take more of a side control mount position. And for some reason, I don't know if it has to do with shoulder flexibility or what, but you really see it used and it work out a lot more in women's mixed martial arts, where the thrower manages to get on top more of the time, whereas in men's you almost never see it, and if you do see it used, it usually gets reversed. But yeah, just like UFC 1, watching the Gracie just go, you don't know how to stop jiu-jitsu. I'm just going to tie you up and take you down and submit you in under 2 minutes, and none of you can do a thing about it. It was that kind of vibe with Conejo. Just, yeah, I'm not like the cleanest, prettiest striker, but I'm going to walk forward, get my arms around you, and then I am too strong. Both in that throw position and then when I have your head wrapped up. If she could learn to generate more power with her other hand, that she's throwing strikes from that dominant position and like get some knockouts, that would be one of the most entertaining things I can imagine. Like just this one move that works over and over and no one can do a thing about. Only something you'd really see in women's MMA, but nice to have like one more variable in the division that can mix it up. And then the end of the fight was pretty interesting too. I watched it 3 times. I couldn't see it. According to Bias, Conejo spit on her after the bell went. Bias standing up and like throwing, trying to like you're pissed off already when you get controlled like that for 15 minutes and you just can't do a thing about it. And all you want is for this fight to be on the feet so you can land hands. And yeah, I thought like at first I thought she was just freaking out, flipping the bird because she was so frustrated with how the match went. But they did have she clapped as the winner was raised. So whatever love lost, not so much that gonna lose the class and professionalism as a fighter. But it certainly added a little drama and just a kind of entertaining match. So we got to the main event, and I kind of want to preface it. I think the UFC made the decision to market Kevin Holland's trash. I don't even know if trash talking is the right way to put it, because he's just talking. He's not even always talking trash. The man just, part of his game is not being able to shut up in the octagon, probably at all times, but you see that in the cage. And the UFC made a big deal about this leading up to the fight. So obviously there was going to be a lot of interest in it during the fight. And I think that was a mistake on their end in that it stole a bit of the narrative of this fight of like, man, Holland needs to stop talking and like start working harder. And I don't think that was the story of this fight. I think Holland just had no answers for Derek Brunson's strength and grappling. And he's just a talker. Like he win, lose, draw, he's going to be talking before, during, and after, and it really has nothing to do with how the fight's going. You saw in that Jacare knockout, like he's on the bottom getting punched in the face talking, and that time it resulted in like a 1 in 10,000 spectacular knockout, but most times he's just going to get punched in the face and keep talking. So it was a pretty dominant performance from Brunson in the grappling throughout 5 rounds. In the first round, Holland slipped on his feet and Brunson like swarmed in, as he always does, throws a bomb in close and then goes right to the grappling, which is set up off that bomb that kind of netted him the first round. Then in the second round, Holland landed that nice right hand that I talked about, always locked and loaded. Wobbled Brunson, didn't sit him down, but he had to like duck, recover. Holland swarms him, and Brunson again just manages to take it to the ground in the clinch. And that just sets the tone of the fight, right? Like, okay, this guy can hurt me on the feet and I can take him down. And once I do take him down, I can control him pretty effectively and win rounds. So why wouldn't you just keep going to that? It wasn't the most exciting grappling, which was a bit disappointing to Brunson's credit. And in his defense, in the second round, he looked for full mount, got it, tried to land something, and Holland immediately scrambled out of it, and Brunson had to work hard to maintain control. So it's not like he didn't look for anything like that at all during the fight. It's just when he did, it got reversed pretty close. And that's just kind of the state of grappling in MMA. If you go into full mount, your opponents almost always seem to have the answer and the ability to just buck you off and possibly even reverse position. So you have to be really confident to go there. He did do his best to land powerful strikes in full guard, and the reach of Kevin Holland was very effective, and just always having like arms up, framing, defending those blows coming down. So yeah, it wasn't that like Dagestani dominance style of wrestling that leads to mistakes and finishes. It was I don't want to call it lay and pray, because I do think Brunson was genuinely working hard to generate power in the strikes he was throwing from full guard, like a la a Frankie Edgar. But Holland's defense was good enough to subvert that. He kept the body triangle for a large part, which in a large effect nullifies Brunson's ability from full guard to posture up and get too much distance to get power on those strikes. And you saw Brunson gassing, which also speaks to how hard he was trying to throw those strikes. The one other thing I wanted to highlight was Brunson had my favorite takedown of the fight was in the 4th round, where he did my favorite thing, where he was striking, throwing hooks, gets close, goes for a body lock. Holland worries about the body lock. Brunson goes back to the hooks and then finds the takedown off of that. Just when you're a high-level grappler coming in, you go match up against all these fantastic strikers and have so many training camps. Your striking gets to a high enough level that you can mix the two beautifully. And I think Derek Brunson embodies that so nicely. And this was a just solid performance from him. A lot of the takedowns did kind of just look like a power difference. And you heard Kevin Holland, I think it was between the 4th and 5th round, in his corner saying, like, guys, I believe in me too, but fuck. Just he couldn't handle the strength once Brunson got his hands locked. And he talked about moving down to welterweight, which would be interesting. I think he came in at 183 for this fight, which speaks to the ability possibly to make welterweight. It's funny because welterweight and middleweight kind of reversed right now, where welterweight has guys like Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman at the top of the division, like real grapplers, whereas welterweight, Derek Brunson's kind of the highest ranked grappler, and when you get higher, you've got like a Till, a Whitaker, a Costa, all strikers. So the top of the welterweight is not going to be an escape from grappling, if that's what Kevin Holland is hoping for. But maybe he just thinks if the athleticism and power and strength are more evenly matched, he'll have a better shot, because it certainly looked like a strength mismatch last night. As for Derek Brunson, I love the Paulo Costa call out. I don't think Paulo Costa is capable of being in a boring fight. So if you didn't like this one for that, you know that this next one, or a matchup with Costa, will either see Brunson knocked out and you're satisfied, or Costa knocked out and you're satisfied. I mean, Izzy's camp hates taking rematches where they look dominant. And you're seeing that play out with Whitaker struggling to get a title shot. So I feel like Brunson's got an even tougher, more arduous road ahead of him to earn that. But Paulo Costa win would put him, I think, one away from one. So I'd love to see Brunson versus Costa. Just that one could be a firefight. No one's really successfully grappled with Costa, so it'd be nice to see Brunson, after having a strength advantage, maybe have a strength disadvantage, and see how he deals with that. If he can do what he did to Holland, I think Costa, or to Costa, that I think he'd be well in discussion for a title shot. Yeah, fun night overall. The bittersweet note coming off of it that Brian Ortega versus Alexander Volkanovski has been postponed from next weekend. You also had Brad Riddell falling off this card. I've said Volkanovski is part of the City Kickboxing camp in previous pods. It's a little less clear than that. He does have Eugene Behrman in his corner, but he also is doing his own thing with guys like Dan Kelly, a more Australian base, because Volk is Australian and City Kickboxing is a New Zealand camp. But either way, Riddell, part of that City Kickboxing camp, off this card due to COVID. Volkanovski also off due to testing positive. This could be a shit show in terms of rebooking. I don't know if Volkanovski is going to go back to Australia. If so, with the quarantine rules, then it could take a long time to rebook. If he's not too bad on symptoms. It could be a short time to rebook if like they could just keep him in the States, stay fit during COVID if the symptoms aren't too bad, take a couple weeks. And I mean, they're not going to put 4 title fights on that April card, but maybe we either see this fight in May, or maybe, just maybe, a free title fight night. I don't know. If you're constantly doing these 3 title fight nights, on pay-per-view, there might be one extra interesting one floating around for free. That would be kind of cool, especially the UFC does have that card on ABC coming up on my birthday, I think, till Vittori. So Dana Shelby, give me a birthday present, put Ortega Volkanovski on that card if Volkanovski was healthy, but we'll see. And that's where I wanted to leave off this combat corner, saying I'm so excited for Stipe Ngannou 2. I've got to get you to watch this first fight because it's, I think, my all-time favorite mixed martial arts performance. The first match between them, the two of them, what Stipe Miocic did in that fight was just so sensational and like the perfect representation of what mixed martial arts is. And Francis Ngannou looking just as dangerous, if not more, since then. So we get to see if he can do it again. I'm so excited to watch that fight like 5 times and break it along with more down. It's going to be hard to generate much film on Ngannou. I think he has like a 4-minute octagon time in his last 4 wins or something absurd. But next Saturday, the fight's coming. Friday, the breakdown is coming. I can't wait for both. And that's going to wrap this combat corner up. We'll be right back.
And we're back for some hockey talk. The Toronto Maple Leafs finally end the skid. Hopefully, I mean, the skid can still keep going, but had lost 6 of the last 7, able to pick up a win Saturday night after losing to the Flames Friday night, and a Superman-like performance from our boy Jack Campbell Soup. And it seems like, based on everything the Leafs fans are saying, I don't know how they can go against it. Obviously, the team is not going to listen to what the fans are saying, but everyone has deemed Jack Campbell as their starter at this point. He's 4-0 with a goals against under 2 and a .965 save percentage. Like, the numbers are great, but 4 starts. In those starts, the team just looks more confident in front of him. He's a great guy to play for, and everyone loves him as a teammate, as a guy. So I'm sure that gives them an extra pep in their step when they're playing. And the biggest thing is he hasn't let in cheapies. And whenever you let in a cheapie, that's when the morale really gets deflated. And Campbell has given the Leafs saves when they've needed them. And that's really all you can do with this team, because they're going to keep coming. And Wayne Simmons back in the lineup gave him an extra boost, and good 4-line rolling game for the Leafs as they pull out a much needed win against the Calgary Flames. Max, I don't know how much of the game you caught or how much analysis you're ready to do, but I'll throw it over to you for some of your thoughts.
Yeah, I think Campbell as the starter is one of those decisions a potato GM could make. I mean, the numbers you gave, 2 shutouts as well. And Anderson looked far, far less from a starting goalie his last night out Friday. Just, I'd say 3 of those 4 goals, like, he potentially could have, should have had, especially the last one. That was such a demoralizing night, and I didn't really want to watch Saturday night. I was so depressed after that Friday night loss, but I'm glad I did watch because I saw a really great defensive effort in the first period. And I think that's what you've got to do when your offense just can't seem to find the back of the net. It starts at defense. You keep the other team out of your net, and that's going to generate chances. It's going to present opportunities, and it's just a matter of you're eventually going to capitalize. I think Jason Spezza leading the team in goals in our last 2 games. That's been such a great story going on in the background, what he's brought to this team at his age, just so many different things. especially after his very rocky first start with Babcock benching him, or not even benching him, just not even starting him. Campbell, he had that Marty Brodeur-esque save in the third to keep the shutout, stacking the pads upside down. And I think Anderson did talk like going in, yeah, I've still got a lower body injury kind of plaguing me. So hopefully this is one of those situations where the decision is best for all parties. Campbell has more than earned himself the start. Freddie has an injury probably plaguing him. He needs some rest. His play is less than deserving. You do worry because the hope was he was going to have a really solid season and we could re-sign him as our starting goalie to continue this franchise going forward, because that is, as we can't talk about Jack Campbell. We can talk about Jack Campbell, the starter, going into next week. We can't talk about Jack Campbell, the starter, going into next season yet. We need to see a lot more from him, I think. Goalies, they can get kind of moody in their own head with this sort of thing where they like lose the starting position and then have trouble returning to the form they had before that. So hopefully with Anderson, it's a matter of get some rest, get back to 100%, be happy for your boy Jack, and when you get back in there, start playing well. That's kind of all I have to say there.
Yeah.
Other things of note going into moving forward, hopefully Austin Matthews can break his 3-post streak sooner rather than later, and this 4 days helps with the wrist. He does seem to be starting to shoot more. And I did want to ask you what you thought about Galchenyuk on the second line. He picks up his first point as a Leaf with an assist, and I think someone on commentary said the one thing you can control is effort, and he certainly does seem to be giving 110% on the forecheck. And I haven't really noticed anything too egregious, so I loved Simmons on that second line, so I don't know when you, as Keith, want to mix that back in, but for now, I'm not seeing any reason to demote Galchenyuk. How about you?
Yeah, it's effort that comes from knowing that this might be your last shot that a team is giving you, and it is a incredible opportunity for him to play with extremely talented group of guys in that top six if he's getting time there. Obviously, you would expect someone to come out with that kind of intensity that has been waiting to get their opportunity for a while, and a lot of teams have given up on now. I would like to see a sustained level of effort over the next couple of weeks before I can really make too much of a take on Gouch. But yeah, the assist is nice. I don't know how much of a contribution the assist was, because he kind of just sent Hyman in on the wing, then Hyman goes all the way around the net and then snipes it. Like,
It's a confidence builder. Like,
yeah,
you don't
exactly.
have journalists writing in his first 10 starts as a Leaf, Galchenyuk with 0 points.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And he's definitely going to have the opportunities to score because, like, Nylander, Tavares, even if he's playing with like Barnes and Matthew, he's going to get set up. He's going to have his opportunities, maybe some second PP time. I don't know. But I'd love to see more energy out of him. He should play every game like it could be his last, because it very well could be. We saw Travis Boyd going on waivers yesterday, and that's mostly just a salary cap move so that if he clears, they can move him up and down. And I don't know if any teams are really going to take him, because who can make the case to their owner that they're trying to pick up more players right now when no one can afford to sign guys. So he should clear waivers. And that's just another guy. Gouch has kind of bumped him out for now based on his performance, but we shall see. The worry I have is if he does not perform in those top six and they start to move him down the lineup, what will happen? Because it seems like he's a guy who might need the top end talent to really help him shine through the most. And if he's not there, then he's not really contributing at all. So that is the reserve. That is the caution I have going in the next couple of games. But if he can give the effort he had on Saturday night, then I'm all for him playing up there in the top six.
yeah, it does there does come a point where, okay, I've played 15 games, I've played 20 games. I'm probably not getting cut if I only give 90% tonight. And that's not like a whole night decision, just like, okay, maybe I won't like kill myself on this particular forecheck. It's just you can only keep a gun against someone's head for so long.
I know,
So
but then you look at Zach Hyman, who does it every single shift.
he doesn't do it because there's a gun against his head. He does it because that's just the kind of player he is.
I love him. I love him so much.
That's about all the Leafs talk I have. Maybe VC doing waivers earlier was like a clear the air or clear the space, test the waters to move Boyd through. But
And he gets picked up, and I think he played first line for Vancouver a couple nights ago. So
wow.
yeah, that I think says more about where Vancouver's at than where the Leafs are at. But yeah, you lose VC, but you gain Galchenyuk, and if Galchenyuk can give you a little bit more, then obviously it's an upgrade, and you feel good about that. Speaking of the Canucks, they will play the Winnipeg Jets tonight, who for the first time this season have dropped 2 games in a row. Them and the Florida Panthers were the only teams who had not done that yet this season. Now just Florida is left. I think it speaks to their consistency and resiliency as a team. And they had a great couple games against the Leafs. And I think it's hard to stay that motivated when you're no longer playing the team in front of you. And then you got to come and play the team behind you. And the Oilers, 2 big wins for them. They're building confidence. So I'm happy that the Jets dropped 2, because now it keeps us in first, and the Oilers tied with us, but we have 2 games in hand, and the Oilers playing the Canadiens tonight. So a lot of important games we get to sit and watch over the next couple of days. But yeah, the Jets will be really looking to turn it around, and I think I'm going to be a Vancouver fan tonight.
Yeah, I wanted to highlight the Canadiens got their first points or 2 points in extra time Saturday night as well, beating the Canucks in shootout. So applause to Montreal.
Yeah.
Just crazy right on stretch they had to start. That must have been such a monkey off the back.
Yeah.
And then I'm really curious when we see the Oilers and Leafs matched up again, if we can continue to shut them out when they put McDavid and Draisaitl on the same line, which has been huge for them. I mean, just a spear that no team can stop for 60 minutes so far. The Draisaitl picking up the game winner against the Jets. I had this game on in the background while I was watching the fights, and it's just so hard to contain Connor McDavid and around the ice and protect the net against him. And then when you have a guy like Draisaitl with like the same level hockey IQ and the crazy shot and scoring abilities, it's just such an exponentially more difficult monkey wrench thrown into the equation. You want to have 2 guys like protecting the ice against McDavid, and that just a guy with his passing ability and a guy with Draisaitl's shooting ability. It's just such a tough puzzle to solve for 60 straight minutes. I'm going to be so fascinated to see if the Leafs can solve it. But it certainly does open up the other 3 lines of Edmonton to be a little bullied. So I'm really looking forward to that matchup next time around to see if the Leafs can continue what they did, or if we've sparked something we should have left sleeping.
Definitely.
Winnipeg is going to, if the standings hold consistent as they are, Winnipeg is going to have a really fascinating end of the season where they're going up against like the Oilers in a triple header. I think the Leafs in 2 and the Canadiens in there as well. The other teams all have like 1 or 2 matchups against like a Canucks or Senators, but I'm curious. I mean, the strengths and power teams in this division and who the team of the week is does seem to be shifting around a lot, and it's not really clear right now. You probably have to give it to the Oilers if you have to give it to anyone. So I'm curious to see if that keeps up, if maybe the Leafs can finally get the monkey off their back that is the Ottawa Senators, with their matchups coming. And this continues to be such an entertaining division and the best gift of COVID.
Absolutely. A quick fun stat before we go. Most stats indicate how great Connor McDavid is, but this one blew my mind. Is 34 games into the season, he is 10 points ahead of Edmonton's second leading scorer, Leon Draisaitl, and he is 30 points ahead of Edmonton's third leading scorer on the team in 34 games. So he's almost point per game more than the third leading scorer, Tyson Barrie, on the Edmonton Oilers. Like, just ridiculous. He's on pace for 145 points through 82 game season, which hasn't been done since like the openly scoring like early 2000s with Joe Thornton and Jaromir Jagr, who my dad had as his top 2 picks in his fantasy draft that year and won it by a mile.
I remember that year.
It was Thornton, Jagr, and then Jonathan Chichu, my boy.
Our boy. Yeah, you look at the NBA right now, and it seems like everyone's scoring has kind of accelerated at the same pace. So like the 40 game nights happening like a couple times a week with some regularity, and there's not really like anyone miles above the rest of the league in their scoring ability. It's more of a decision of how the team wants to operate, how much iso ball they want to play, and usage rate. Whereas I love it with McDavid and the NHL because the rest of the league is more or less exactly where it was 5-10 years ago. And McDavid just showing how special he is, putting up such ridiculous. I mean, it hit me when he was at 56 points per game, or 56 points in the season. Like, oh, he's already hit a point a game pace and he still has 20 games left in the season. It's just absurd to see. And it's one, why can't anyone else do that? Like, is he making it look easy, or is he just that good? No, he's terrifyingly great, for sure. The best player in the world right now, and I really hope to see him in a Canadian uniform sooner rather than later.
Yes, absolutely. All right, I think that'll do it for our Talking Hockey.
Yep.
And we'll take one more quick break and come back to wrap up the show with some notes from other sports action around the world.
And we're back. Time to wrap up the show. Pitter patter, Owen, get at her.
Yeah, we're going to start in the football fan cave. The New York Giants signing Kenny Golladay to a 4-year contract. Kenny Golladay will be their wide receiver 1. I think it's a really important move for the Giants. It's the best receiver they've had since Odell left in that trade to the Cleveland Browns. He will take away some of the pressure off of Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, some of those younger guys in the receiving core for the Giants. And obviously a threat to pair with Saquon Barkley in the backfield is always nice to have. And if Daniel Jones is your guy, then you got to really start putting weapons around him because he can't do a lot of it himself. And so really nice signing there for the Giants, who do end up making a big splash, getting a free agent rather than just re-signing Leonard Williams. I wanted to talk briefly about my Denver Broncos because I was happy that they were able to sign Kyle Fuller on a 1-year deal at $9.5 million. And he was a Pro Bowler back in 2018 under Vic Fangio when Fangio was the defensive coordinator with the Bears. And they also pick up Ronald Darby. So just improving that secondary depth will be really important for them because it was a place of struggle. They were middle of the pack in the league last year in pass defense. And with Von Miller coming back, Bradley Chubb coming back, the pass rush is going to be there, but now you just need more guys who can play coverage down the field. And I think hopefully we can resurrect the Pro Bowl season that Kyle Fuller had in 2018 this next season, because that would be really nice, especially with the extension of the one Justin Simmons, who is probably top 3 free safety in the league now. He has not missed a snap over the last 3 seasons, which is absolutely incredible to do in a game as physical as football. 4 years, $61 million for Simmons, and can't be happier about his production. And so hopefully Denver's crafting that stronger secondary. It feels like we're just an elite quarterback away from competing for a Super Bowl. I feel like a lot of teams could say that, but I'm really, really hoping that we're in on the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. Despite what has been going on with Deshaun, it's really hard to figure out what's real and what's not coming out of that story. Whether, because you never want to go against victims of something so terrible that has happened. And then you hear these stories of possibly Houston leaking stuff like that just so that they can kind of lower his value on the market in order to move him. That seems just like too brutal of a move from the Texans organization. But then the alternative is like Deshaun Watson is a terrible person and has done terrible things. So it's a yucky situation. He's obviously an incredible quarterback that any team would be lucky to have playing. But there's definitely some stuff that's got to be figured out first before he can come back to the NFL. Okay, let's move out of that topic in Football Fan Cave and move over to some tennis, where our girl, Leylah Annie Fernandez, winning her first WTA Tour title at the Monterrey Open. She did not drop a single set throughout the tournament. Super aggressive, lots of cross-court volleys, really attacking the ball. She played so incredibly well, had come up short last year in a final and was able to take that experience and apply it this year. She dominated out of the gate. It was 5-0 in the first set, finished 6-1, and then she took the next set 6-4. So really, really proud of her. She didn't really get to celebrate with her parents due to COVID still, so a little bit unfortunate there, but she'll be moving right into Miami Open qualifying this week, which is a fairly big tournament, and hopefully she can keep her momentum going. Just super awesome to see her take home a title, hopefully the first of many for her, and along with Bianca, really building out the future of women's tennis in Canada. Really exciting stuff.
Yeah, on one of our Bianca videos, someone commented telling us not to sleep on this girl and keep an eye on her. Did you catch any of the tournament, like biggest win or biggest name win, anything that stood out? Or
she took down, I believe, the 7th seed in the tournament in the semis. Really, she's just dominant the whole way through it. It is one of the smaller tournaments. I think the biggest thing for her, she's a lefty, which is cool. So we got Chapo, who's a lefty, and we got Leylah, who's a lefty in the men's and the women's side. I think the biggest thing was her is she really took a lot of the stuff she'd been learning from previous tournaments and applying it, like super aggressive, attacking the net, lots of cross court volleys, lots of really fundamentally sound stuff. The serve looked pretty good. Yeah, and because she's still so young, it's such a great foundation to build off of. No real key major wins, but I think one of those is going to be coming sooner rather than later, maybe even at this Miami Open, but we're hoping for Wimbledon. That would be just awesome to see. And hopefully Bianca will be back by then too. So really fun future of Canadian women's tennis.
yeah, definitely keeping an eye on that Miami Open.
Mm-hmm. And not just for the women. Hopefully Felix and Dennis can make some noise. And I don't know if Milos will be there too, probably. So
Felix pick up a win in a tournament or a finals appearance recently?
Not that I saw.
Okay, I thought I saw something about him being in the finals, but it is such a funny sport, tennis, where you tune in for like the Grand Slams, or like you hear, but there's tournaments going all season long and they're not really on your radar till suddenly a Canadian's in the finals and you're like, oh, what's this important tournament going on? And then it fades out. This Miami Open one I am gonna have coverage of, so I'm gonna try and tune in a little closer.
Awesome. All right, we'll look forward to that coverage. Baseball opening day is a little bit less than 2 weeks away. Really excited for that. And I guess I got to throw together a bit of a season preview. It might not be the best, but I'll do my best.
I think I'm just going to become a Shohei stan because that seems to be the path to success.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, definitely going to be watching Shohei Ohtani and Blue Jays baseball. Very close to being back. Really excited for it. That will do it for our show. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, listening, watching, wherever you're consuming our content. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitter if you want to get conversation going there. Always open to feedback and hearing from our listeners. Yeah, thank you, everyone. stay safe. Enjoy the weather as it gets a little bit nicer. Max, any last thoughts for us?
Forecheck, back check, stick check, poke check. Sports Next Door signing out.